at the end of the day, like that's not a alcohol-induced thing, you know. Like that's you're a good person or you're a bad person thing. Now you could have misunderstandings with the opposite sex if you're drinking, but that's not a misunderstanding. That's forceful, essentially trying to force intimacy or whatever you want to call it. That is a violent act. That's if you're that violent at 16 or 17, you're not going to change that much over time.
I don't think it's like a matter of if you're drunk, there can be misunderstandings. I don't like if a person is so drunk they can't remember, they shouldn't be having sex, and there's no way really to have a misunderstanding if both people are consensual and in the moment, whatever. People have to communicate, whatever. But that's, as you said, there's no way that that is a misunderstanding. Being pinned down, trying to get her clothes off. Thankfully, he was too drunk to get her clothes off. And apparently it was the guy who's now denying that this happened that actually kind of stopped it.
And by the way, like, there's also the other guy in the room, Mark something.
Mike, I think.
Has written about how these days at the prep school, because, you know, white privileged kids in D.C., they were all drunk all the time.
I do want to say something about that. Like Montgomery County, the suburbs around D.C., they're bad. This stuff goes on all the time in these fancy prep schools. Even the school that the Obama kids went to, stuff like that. So it's not surprising that this came out of those schools, and it's not surprising that he has people trying to say it never happened, even though it pretty clearly did.
Right. I think the bottom line is this. The Republican Party, and, you know, give credit where credit is due, the two that are retiring, Jeff Flake and Bob Corker, who's corrupt himself, but I digress. They said, as of now, we can't vote for him and we need to hear this woman out. I believe Susan Collins has said that too. I don't know about Lisa Murkowski and Joe Manchin, who might as well be a Republican. He's up for re-election. He said they need to hear her out. And also something very, very telling that leads me to believe that this might be true and is most likely true. Kellyanne Conway went on television this morning. President Trump, Kellyanne Conway would not say, yes, this woman should be heard, unless President Trump and the White House already knew something damning about this and knew that there might be some credibility to this, or might be fearful that there might be other women that come out. So when is the last time Kellyanne Conway or Donald Trump have said anything showing empathy, understanding, or any of that? So I think that Kellyanne Conway coming out and basically saying, yes, we should hear out this woman and we should not be hostile or treat her disrespectfully, tells me they're probably worried, or they probably have information that we don't.
And also, it wasn't that Kellyanne, she didn't just come out and give like a one-on-one interview with one of the big networks. She went beyond the gates, like before you, because if you look at the interview, she's where you have to get beyond security. She's outside of that so that the press could get to her. A lot of press got to her and asked these questions, and she gave that answer, which was very surprising and very telling.
So here's what I think to wrap this up. Number one, Jen and I were not there. I wasn't born, actually. I don't think you were either.
No.
No, we weren't there. And I think in these situations, especially when it's he said, she said, it's very easy to just immediately rush on something and be like guilty. But that's also dangerous because not every situation, sometimes they're not. But I will say this, everything I've seen, including when she first spoke about this in therapy where it was of no benefit to her, she wasn't hurting. She wasn't trying to get Brett Kavanaugh thrown out of his judgeship. She wasn't trying to get, tar his reputation. It was a traumatic event that she recounted in therapy. And as soon as Brett Kavanaugh's name was nominated for Supreme Court, that's the time she felt she had to do this. I don't see any reason I don't see any reason not to believe her unless something else comes out that pours cold water on it, but I don't see that. I do see, based on the fact that Brett Kavanaugh has repeatedly lied about other things. And by the way, here's another point. So Brett Kavanaugh said, oh, I think this woman is thinking about misremembering me for something else. And I don't even think I was at that party. Okay. So Brett Kavanaugh remembers that he wasn't at a party 36 years ago, but he doesn't remember whether he had a conversation with lobbyists. He was asked about that. Do you remember having a conversation with, oh no, not lobbyists, attorneys, I think, that are representing Trump? Said, I don't remember that, which happened recently. I do remember I wasn't at a party 36 years ago. I could tell you, I don't remember what parties I was at 15 to 20 years ago, to tell you the truth. But I do remember, stuff I was at recently and conversations I had recently, for the most part.
And if you were a person who was sexually assaulting women in college and raping women in college, that's something you do remember, and that's something you try to cover up if you're Kavanaugh.
Yes. So we'll obviously monitor it. I think that I am a cynical person because I've seen too much corruption. At this point, I still think he's going to be confirmed. I really do. Yeah.
See, I tend to be more, you always say my humanity isn't fully gone yet.
It will be.
So I think the Dems will make this into a bigger and bigger story, as it should be. I think people like Collins will really have to not confirm because, and actually she even had a $2 million GoFundMe raised for her to say no to Kavanaugh. So I think there's enough forces in power and enough media backing of anti this that I don't think he'll be confirmed.
We shall see.